gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free.
All right, everybody, we are here for the conclusion of the Quinton Nixon trial. Now, this trial, guys, I'm going to give you a little intro here to this because it's not a simple conclusion here, because unfortunately, this is this was a case that the defendant is representing himself pro se, and it's a bench trial. And as a result, there were some issues that were going on with the case that they had to resolve. So there was a month-long delay. And for whatever reason, it was being covered. And then all of a sudden, I guess other trials took precedence. And basically, they covered the verdict. They covered, there's coverage of a cross-examination of him by the state. And after that, it's crickets. So what we're going to do to conclude this case, because we have days 1 through 4 already documented, we're going to document here today the cross-examination, which is not even the complete cross-examination, but it's the part to which Court TV was able to share and broadcast. And then we're going to broadcast the verdict and go from there. So without further ado, let's jump in here.
He's back on the stand. It's time for cross.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nixon.
Good afternoon.
I am going to ask you some questions. If you do not understand any question I ask, please stop me and I'll repeat it.
Yes, ma'am.
If you answer, I'm going to assume you understood the question and you're answering the question asked.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? All right, so bottom line, you're the one who shot Toni Westover, correct?
Yes, ma'am, in self-defense.
Okay, and you shot Toni with her own gun, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I didn't know it was her gun at the time, though.
Okay. After shooting Toni, you fled the scene. You left the scene, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And everyone fled the scene, correct?
Now that I know, yes.
And you heard their testimony that they either had warrants or was on parole or things of that nature, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
At that time, did you have a warrant?
I believe I had a capious warrant.
Okay. Is that the reason you left?
No.
Okay.
Speak into the microphone, just because, you talk very softly, and I want to be able to hear your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
No, that's not the reason I left.
Okay. When you left, you had the gun with you, isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you left, you took Toni's purse when you jumped over the balcony, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you took that gun because you knew that was the gun that just shot Toni Westover, correct?
No, I took that gun because there was another gun on scene.
Okay. And that gun on scene was the one Adam or Brian had, correct?
Yes, and I was in fear of them using it on me.
Okay, but you left right after them. Like you literally were following them out.
Ron was still in the home, and he was the one that hit me with the machete, and Angel also told me to get out.
Oh, now Angel told you to get out?
Yeah. It's just,
Okay, I'm just asking because you didn't testify to that at first. So now she's telling you to get out.
She told me I was the devil and I needed to leave.
Okay. And you said Ron hit you with the machete. You had a gun though, correct? He had a machete, you had a gun.
Yeah.
Okay. You took that purse too. That wasn't to protect you, correct?
No, ma'am.
You took that gun because you had touched a vape pen in there?
No, I had took the purse to find my phone as well as I touched the vape pen.
Because you told the officers that you touched it during your interview. You touched the vape pen.
The vape pen, yes,
and your
ma'am.
fingerprints may be on that vape pen.
Yes, ma'am. I panicked.
Okay. So you were trying to cover up even you even being there, correct?
I mean, that's what it looked like, yeah, so I can.
Adam had a gun and he attacked you, correct? He was one of the people in the house that had a gun, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
During that day, he attacked you. I think you said he pistol whipped you on the floor with the gun.
In between me fighting with Brian.
Okay. And Brian, I was getting to that. Brian had a gun that day, correct?
Yes.
And he was fighting with you that day, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In that living room, Toni was the only female, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Toni did not argue with you, correct?
No.
Toni did not fight with you, correct? Okay. And Toni did not have a weapon, correct?
No, the gun was on Brian.
Yes, she's the only one that you shot multiple times, is that correct?
When she lunged for the gun in the middle of me being attacked.
Okay. She's the only one that you shot multiple times that day, correct?
Yes, ma'am, 3 times.
Okay. You could have left that apartment at any time, isn't that correct?
Prior to the incident, yes.
Okay. Now, when you were interviewed by the detectives, you stated multiple times, 21 minutes, 18 seconds. I was there for like 4 to 5 days. I felt like I could not leave. You even texted your mom to make sure you were safe. 22 minutes, 58 seconds. I felt I could not leave. I tried to leave. That is not true. Isn't that correct?
What is not true? That I text my mom? I text my mom.
No. I was there for like 4 or 5 days. I felt I could not leave. I felt I could not leave. You said that multiple times throughout. I tried to leave throughout that 4 to 5 day period.
When I spoke to the detectives?
Correct, that's what you said, correct?
Yeah, I said that after getting beat by the police. I was scared.
I'm gonna break this down. You told the detectives in your interview you were at that house 4 to 5 days.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
you felt like you could not leave, is that correct? I can play it for you.
I think I kind of ran it all together,
I know what you know.
but it's okay.
The question is, did you say that to law enforcement when
Yes,
you were
ma'am,
interviewed?
I did.
In fact, you could leave throughout that time, couldn't you? During those 4 or 5 day periods, you absolutely were free to leave at any time you wanted to.
I had left and came back, yes.
Multiple times.
Yes.
During that interview with the police, so we know you're capable of saying things that aren't true.
How?
You were there 4 or 5 days and you could leave, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You told the police you couldn't leave.
At the time of
That's
the
just a yes or
incident.
no? Did you tell the police that in your interview?
Yes, at the time of the incident, I couldn't leave.
The incident took 4 or 5 days?
No, the incident didn't take 4 or 5 days. Brian wasn't there 4 or 5 days.
Okay. In your interview, let me just go over the interview first. You said in the interview that they had rolled out plastic big enough to roll me up in.
Yes.
They had enough plastic to wrap me up in, isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You testified that there wasn't any plastic.
I testified that the poster, I thought that was plastic.
Okay. That poster was not big enough to roll you up in, isn't that correct?
Yeah, it was.
That poster was big enough for your body to get rolled up in.
Yeah.
Okay. You also in your interview at 25 minutes and 3 seconds said some dude came out the back with a hammer and a machete.
Yeah.
Okay. He did not come out with a hammer or a machete, isn't that correct?
No, he came out with the machete.
Okay. What happened to the hammer?
He had it in his hand on the way out the door, when I was on my way out the door.
He had the hammer. You didn't see the picture of the hammer on the bed when you were sitting here?
Yeah, I did.
So he came at you with the hammer?
No, he came at me with the machete.
No, you said when you were on your way out the door, Ron came at you with the hammer at that time?
Ron was in his room. We all went through his room.
After it was over, Ron had left out of Angel's room and went back to his room?
Yeah, he was in his room.
Okay. And he had the hammer with him?
Yeah.
Okay. I asked you about the gun earlier, and you said he had a machete. So did he have the machete and the hammer at this time?
Pardon me, you asked me about a gun?
I asked you about the gun. I said you followed them out when they jumped off the balcony.
Okay,
I said you
yeah.
went after them out the balcony, and you said, well, Ron was still in there with the machete.
Yeah.
Okay, so did he have the machete or did he have the hammer at this time?
He had the hammer when I left, but he hit me with the machete when we fought.
And when you were running with that gun, you tossed it so you would not get caught with it. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
At the time when you were being interviewed, you told the police it dropped. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's not true either.
I didn't.
You either tossed it or it dropped. You just testified you tossed it. You told the police at the time of your interview it dropped.
I got rid of the gun when I was running. Yes.
At the beginning of your interview, you told the police you did not even have the gun. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't until, and it was Detective Hornacek sitting right here, is that fair, in your
Yes.
interview? It wasn't until Detective Hornacek stated that he watched video, you changed your story in that interview, correct?
No.
Okay,
You can play it.
okay. After he told you he watched a video, you stated you had a gun and dropped it when you were running. Isn't that correct?
No, I don't believe so.
You know what, that's fine, because now we know you didn't drop it, you tossed it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You were also asked before you realized Detective Hornacek watched the video, did you jump off with a purse? And you said no, correct? You said you only jumped off with your jewelry and a phone, correct?
No. I said that's all I had on me at the house. I never said when he asked me about the purse, I told him that I jumped off the porch with the purse and I went into the purse looking for the vape pen.
Okay. Prior to Detective Hornacek stating he watched the video, you said you never fired the gun, correct? (29 minutes, 59 seconds). Defendant says he never fired the gun. He only had possession after he grabbed it off the table. Brian shot Toni. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Okay, so at that time, you knew Brian didn't shoot Toni, correct?
I was under duress, so it was kind of like, yes, I did.
And you stated you had never fired that gun, correct? And I'm not trying to trip you up. If you want to hear what you said, I'll be more than happy to play it.
Please.
Okay.
Okay, they're going to get the recording so that he could hear himself on it saying that he never fired the gun. We'll get a break, get you back into the courtroom for more of the cross-examination of Quinton Nixon right after this.
Mr. Jeffrey, tell me what happened that night.
Killed my wife.
Right now, we're watching him on cross-examination. Let's go back.
Go ahead.
Did you ever point the gun at anyone? So you're saying you pointed the gun, Brian lunged at you, somehow Brian got out of the way from you and shot that girl?
I kept saying she was the police, and she was snitching, she was recording something on her phone.
This one? So you didn't shoot her?
We were wrestling over the gun to get it back.
How did Adam get it?
Brian took it from me after he beat my ass and bit me in my face.
Did you ever have possession of the gun?
I grabbed it off the table.
I played it backwards. We're about to play it together.
Say that again. What did you say, Miss Easter?
I played them backwards.
Sure. This one.
The one you just got there. Nope. That one. Well, she could. If you get the other one, I can play it. Did you hear when you said you never had possession of the gun? I'm sorry, you never fired the gun, you only had possession after you grabbed it off the table?
I said after I grabbed it off the table.
Correct.
That's all I said. The video just said that.
Did you didn't hear when you said you never fired the gun?
Speak up.
You didn't hear when you said you never fired the gun?
He said that. He asked me, did I ever fire the gun? I said,
No, you shook your head.
can you play it again?
That's fine, we will. Okay, and then I'm going to play you the one you said you wanted to hear when you said you did not leave you were asked if you left the house with the gun. You said nothing, my jewelry and my ID. We're going to play that one next, but I'm going to ask you other questions.
Pardon me, you said I left the home with my jewelry and ID? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I thought you said I left the home with my jewelry and my phone.
Okay. Oh, I can do it.
Sounds like the judge getting a little frustrated with the tenacity of this, saying, speak up. We'll get a break, get you back in for more right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live, along with Judge Ashley Wilcott. I'm Ted Rollins. Good to be with you. We have our cameras in several courtrooms today.
Talking about, you said there was cameras in the house?
Yeah, they kept saying there was cameras in the house, there was cameras in the TV, there was cameras in, they were recording with AirPod, all types of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So what did you leave the house with after you left? Nothing? You left your phone there, but you didn't leave?
Oh, no, I had my ID and stuff.
Okay.
And my jewelry.
Okay. Did you hear you said you left with your ID and stuff?
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
jewelry? At
Yes,
that
ma'am.
time, you did not admit that you left with Toni Westover's purse, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's because I didn't leave with Toni Westover's purse.
You didn't jump off the balcony with Toni Westover's purse?
I didn't take it.
My
I
question.
left it there.
Okay.
That's why I answered that way.
Did you jump off the balcony with Toni Westover's purse?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you leave out the physical apartment with Toni Westover's purse?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And all you had was jewelry and an ID. You didn't leave with the gun? You sure?
Okay, you said you did not realize, you shook your head. Now, did you hear him say, did you leave with the gun? And did you see yourself shaking your head? No.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And that's at 35 minutes, and I was at 35 minutes, 39 seconds. And I showed you a clip where you said you did not have her purse. You only left with your ID and your phone. Remember that?
I said I only had my ID and my jewelry, not my phone. He said, you left your phone. I said, yes.
And all of that is before, you said you didn't think it was before the officer or detective talked about seeing video. At 36:19 is when they let you know there were cameras.
We're only asking you to tell the truth because, like you said, there is cameras.
Right.
And that's the reason that you're here. It's not about.
Okay, so did you hear he's letting you know there are cameras that they saw?
Yes, and I also heard me saying that there was cameras. I told him there was cameras.
You had no idea at that time what cameras that he saw, isn't that correct?
I knew there was cameras, but that's correct.
Okay, and after he said that, your story changed. That is when you,
Let her ask the question first.
Yes, ma'am.
your story changed. Isn't that correct?
No.
Okay, so you saw the time, so you understand before and after, correct?
Would you like to play it all the way through?
I'm asking you, understand what before and after is, correct?
I do know what before and after is.
Okay. After he let you saw, after he said he saw the video, you then admit to grabbing the gun. Before you said you did not have possession of the gun, correct?
No, that's not correct.
As far as Toni's gun, the girl's gun,
I didn't even know I was going
and that's fine. As far as her gun, when you grabbed the gun, was it in a holster? Do you remember that? Okay, so there was a holster.
Okay, did you see yourself shaking your head? Yes.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I can play it, that's fine.
As far as Toni's gun, the girl's gun,
I didn't even know I was going
and that's fine. As far as her gun, when you grabbed the gun, was it in a holster? Do you remember that? Okay, so there was a holster.
Did you see yourself shaking your head?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So now, after he said there's cameras, now you're grabbing the gun. So now you have possession of the gun, correct? Now you're letting them know you have possession of the gun, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before the detective said he had video, you said you did not fire the gun, correct? If you don't remember, I can play it. You said you did not fire the gun.
I don't know. All I know is I fired the gun.
You absolutely did fire the gun.
I
That is
absolutely did fire the gun. In self-defense.
correct. You fired the gun. That is it fair to say you did not tell the detectives in that order? You were
not fair to
not
say.
forthcoming.
It's not fair to say because I was beaten and I was scared when I was giving this interview and I was deprived of medical, which she wouldn't let me testify today. So.
Okay. Was SWAT in there in that interview with you?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't.
It's a question. Thank you for answering. SWAT was not in there with you at that time. Through this interview, did they hit you at all?
No, they deprived me of medical.
Did they raise their voice at you at all?
Nope.
Did they give you a chance to answer the questions?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Okay.
But I wasn't all the way there. I wasn't
Physically, emotionally, mentally?
all three. All of those. I wasn't all the way there.
So at some point in time, you were not physically present in front of them?
I mean, what I mean by mentally, like, I wasn't all the way there.
You were answering their questions as asked. You may not have answered truthfully, but you were answering. Like if they asked you what today is, you didn't say blue or, you were answering. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you agree you were answering their questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. You have a certificate that you went through OPATA, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Peace officer certificate.
How long was that training?
I believe it was 4 weeks.
Okay. And during that training, sometimes prosecutors can conduct that training and law enforcement officers, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. During your training, police officers and or law enforcement, police officers and or prosecutors, did they conduct your training?
It was law enforcement.
Okay. So you had interactions with law enforcement during your training?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And after you got your certificate, did you use your certificate? Did you work in any type of place using your certificate?
Yes, ma'am. I did armed security.
Okay. So armed security, and you had to go through training probably at that place you did armed security as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if something happened, you would have had to call the police, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you know how to call the police in a situation, a stressful situation or a bad situation.
Yes, ma'am.
You were trained on how to call the police in a stressful situation or a bad situation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And all of your interactions with police were not negative.
Not all of them.
Some taught you.
Yes, ma'am. Not all of them.
You were asked at 51 minutes and 40 seconds why you shaved your head and why you did not come out after police told you. You said you were scared, and you also said that some were on their payroll.
Yeah. There was a conversation that Brian had about.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But just to clarify about being on payroll, that was what Brian had said, so it had scared me, like maybe he got ties to the police or something. I don't know,
I don't know what you're talking about right now. I'm sorry.
You said something about payroll.
Correct. You told the detective in the interview you didn't come out because you were scared. You used to have bad interactions with the police.
I've had bad
Bit by a dog.
Yes, ma'am.
And they were on their payroll.
And what I'm telling you is when I said about the payroll thing, I was speaking on, Brian said that he had police officers on payroll.
Oh, now,
He's clarifying his
That's all I'm clarifying. I didn't even get a chance to even explain my narrative in this video. This was right after I got beaten by the police, so.
but now you're saying Brian said he had officers on payroll.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you said you didn't get a chance to explain, they actually asked you at the end, is there anything else you want to say? Or they gave you a chance to say everything, didn't they?
They did.
Let's bring in our guest for this hour to discuss. Joining us now from Los Angeles, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Marie, thank you for being on with both of us. Listen, this is a pro se defendant. He is very non-pulse, sitting up there on the stand under cross-examination. He's very monotone, and we know he is trying to get out of this with a judge only. There's no jury in that courtroom. How do you think he's doing on cross?
I think he's doing a good job, and as for the prosecutor, I understand it is an adversarial situation, but I feel like I'm watching an episode of Reasonable Doubt. I feel like she's too emotional. She's too like, I know you heard what I said.
All right, guys. So that is actually where all the coverage of the testimony ends, unfortunately. It's all the cross-examination we get to see. But as you can see, the prosecutor's theme of the cross-examination is that he's capable of lying. He lied to the police. He's lied about the circumstances. He was lying about different facts and circumstances surrounding the case. So as a result, and he's making self-serving lies. He's leaving out details that are self-serving to himself. So as a result, the judge shouldn't trust him. Now remember, this is a situation where a judge is going to make the final determination on, what the verdict will be. It's not going to be a situation where a jury gets the decision here. So I think that's why the judge was kind of stopping things and getting a little frustrated, because it's like, listen, I'm the one that's going to be the trier of fact here. So you don't need to go with all the dramatics, and you don't need to and I think that's what the commentator, I'm not playing that in full, but the commentator there was also saying that, listen, this prosecutor was being too dramatic and emphasizing things. So next, unfortunately, like I said, this is where the coverage, we don't get to see closing arguments or anything like that. The next thing that happens, the next coverage of this case is the verdict. And now understand this: when a judge in a bench trial gives a verdict, it's a little bit different than when a jury gives a verdict. Jury just simply reads the verdict. Count one, guilty, not guilty. Count two, the judge actually makes findings of fact that is in support of the verdict that she's going to find. So you actually get to hear the thought process behind the verdict when it's guilty or not guilty. So it takes a little while. So this will be about 20, 30 minutes of the verdict and aftermath. If you haven't found out what the verdict is yet, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to go in now, and we're going to watch the verdict now. Like I said, we're going to pick up now.